Assalamu alaikum, hi everyone. So today we are going to make a few models and migrations. Actually it's going to be just 2 models and 3 migrations. One is for campaign, The campaign is going to contain few details like title, description, location, and time. And the other model is going to be contact, which is basically the person who filled this information. We are going to capture his information. And a third table, which is a pivot table. It's going to be many-to-many relationship, so it can capture mutual data between the campaign and the contact. And we will see how we can make that pivot table easily. So let's get started. So here I'm going in the terminal, I will add sale PHP artisan, make a model. I will call it campaign, and it should give me migrations and a controller and resources as well. So let's get that one. Now I will create another one, the same thing but for contact. So basically now what we have done so far is that there are a few controllers. There are 2 controllers to be precise. They have resources already, both of them. And I'm going to have now, or first let's look at the database. We can see that we have in the migrations, we have created these 2. Actually, let me pause and make a Git repository for this one. So now the GitHub repo is done. You can find it in the description, inshallah. For the campaigns, there is by default the ID. It's an auto increment ID, but in some cases like this one, you want people to see something more hard to guess. So for this particular reason, I will use table string and then a column. I will call it UUID, and it's basically a unique. Now you can add actually UUID field like this one. So if you just remove the ID and use a default UUID, and you can name it whatever you want like this. But I don't prefer this one in my case because I'm going to use other tools later, and it requires an auto incremental ID. So in this case I will make a UUID field, and it will play as a slug field basically. So let's continue. Now we want also a few other fields. So we have the ID, UUID, title, location, description, start and end dates. Now you can add a few other things on your own, like the number of seats, for example. Now for the contact, I'm going to do the same for the UUID. It's going to be a string. So we have first name, last name, company, email, mobile. Let me check, did we miss anything? First name, last name, email, mobile, company, and notes. So as I said before, we're going to need a new pivot table. Now there is an easy way to make it. There is this package by Jeffrey Way. It's Laravel 5 generators extended, but it works for all Laravel versions. So what it does basically, it has many features actually, but what I am interested is, let's first copy this line and run it in our terminal. And if you search for pivot, this is what we are going to do, is that we are going to run this PHP artisan. It's migration pivot, then the 2 tables that we want them connected to each other. So yeah, I failed here because I required it using composer on my local machine, and that one has PHP 7.4. So using now the sail one, sail PHP artisan, make migration pivot, and the two tables that I have is contact and campaign, and it's going campaigns, sorry, it has to be plural, contacts and campaigns, because it's basically looking for the database table names. So contacts, campaigns, and it's going to create a table. You probably have noticed this also. Sail. So as you can see here, now we have this one. Let's have the schema. So as you can see, we have a relation between two tables, and it always starts with alphabet order. So campaign, then contact, goes in alphabetical order. Campaign comes before contact. However, this is not just enough for us, because we are capturing data. It's not just relation between two tables, it's a relation with data. So the data that we want is table boolean. I'm going to say this going, it's nullable, or let's say default is false. Not going, and enter instead. So all of them are false by default unless we specify one, and there is additional field that is called, that's a text actually, and it's called notes. The notes has to be nullable, it's better, and one more field, and that's going to be timestamps. Now let's work on the models. So for the campaign, usually I prefer to use soft deletes, but in this case I rather not. So I will just keep it as it is. Now we should have a method for contacts. So in a campaign, you want all the contacts who have registered for this campaign basically. This will return belongs to many, and you can look in Laravel documentation and you can see how we can work with this for more details. But in our case, we are just, as you can see, the related, it's basically a model, so it's a contact model class. And now there is something for the pivot, I think with pivot or with pivot, and here we pass all the fields that we named. So it's we have the going, not going, interested, and notes. Also, if you don't want to write the created at and updated at, you can say with timestamps. The same will go for the contact. So each contact can have multiple campaigns. There is a G here, and it belongs to multiple campaign class, and the same with pivot and with timestamps. Now if we've done everything correctly, we can make sale PHP artisan and run the migration by migrate. Sorry, I typed it wrongly. Migrate. Now we have migrated our data. Let's check how we can access them. So I will go to the extensions of VS Code. There is an extension for MySQL. It's this one. I will install it. Let's open it. Create a new connection. I will call it RSVP, and I will use the default, but if we connect, it will give me the host database, not the one that we created on containers. So to solve that, we have to map our port to something else. So I will be using, for example, 3307 instead of 6, and then hit the connect again. But if we do this, it will give us a connection error, as you can see here on the top. So to fix this, we can go to the docker compose YAML file, then search for the MySQL, and we can see that here it's mapping 3306. This is our machine 3306 to the container 3306 port. To change it, either we go to the environment file and we make this one to something else, like .env here, for example. I will add this one equals 3307. This DB port, we keep it as it is, 3306, because it is used internally, but for our forwarded DB port, we use the 3307. So I will save this one. Now going to our Docker images, we can see that it's still running 3306 for the MySQL. And to change that, first we have to bring it down. Now again, sail up -d. Now if we check, you can see that it's moved now and it's 3307. In the environment, we can use the default here, RSVP for database and sail for username, password is password. So we are using the defaults. I will close this one. Connect. Now we can see our RSVP, and these are our tables. And I believe I forgot a few columns in my campaigns table. We need the location and the parking. You may have noticed this is wrong. This should be date time, and description should be text. So it takes 3000 characters. And then we're going to have 2 additional columns. Both of them are string. One is parking and the other is parking link. So the parking will take the text itself, and the parking link will take, for example, a Google Maps link. Let's close these. To recreate the tables, we just use the same one we used before, sail PHP artisan migrate with fresh. Now we have the same. If we go to the campaigns, we can see its structure, that we have the date, time, start date, end date, parking as well. And for the contacts, we can see that these are our contacts. Now we need to create a new campaign in this table. So there are many ways to do that. One of them is directly from the database right here, or using a factory, and I prefer a factory. So I will create a factory for the campaigns. So PHP artisan make factory. We'll call it campaign. Sorry. Again, it's sail PHP. Now we have created our factory successfully. Let's check it out. And this is our factory. And as you can see, we already have a factory for the user, which is like this. So to create a similar for the campaign, we can say, now whatever the fields that we have, we need to fill them. I will go back to the campaign table. I'll pick all the fields that I have, copy, then come back to the factory, paste, so now I have defined our factory, and to use it we simply go to the seeders, database seeder, similar to the user. This one I will just keep it for reference, and we can create, for example, 10 factories, which is going to be campaign. So we use the campaign and make sure that the campaign has the has factory in its use statement. And let's run this again, so we can run the migrate fresh dash seed, so it picks up the seed changes. Now if you go to the campaign, let's just refresh, we can see that these are all our campaigns. So next time inshallah we will cover how to bind the data from the backend from this database into our React components.